Today is January 27th. January 27th. And I could ask, but I don't want to create it, like embarrassment. January 27th is a significant date on the international calendar. International calendar. It is, okay, does someone want to offer what January 27th is?
Is it Holocaust Memorial Day?
Yeah, okay. And I'm not sure exactly, how many people know that. January 27th is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And again, why this date? Why was this date selected? Why January 27th? And the answer is this was the date on which Auschwitz was liberated.
Oh.
Okay? So that
wow.
okay,
Wow.
yeah. That's why I wanted to mention it. You think about 1945, you think about everything else. This day, January 27th, one of the great mottos that have accompanied Holocaust Memorial is never again. And one of the strange things that has happened since October 7th is that people are wondering whether never again can stand as a statement about the Jewish future. October 7th weakened never again as a statement of how the Jewish people will hold up into the future. Along with today, International Holocaust Remembrance Day, there's Yom HaShoah, which is the Holocaust Memorial Day on the Jewish calendar. Since today is memorial to the liberation of Auschwitz, what is Yom HaShoah? Why does that date exist? Why that?
I don't know, Rabbi.
That's the start of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising.
Oh,
that date.
God.
Okay? Both dates have power. They do their own thing. Yom HaShoah, 1943, the start of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. I try not to do this, but it struck me as a very interesting question. Elon Musk, the famous inventor of everything expensive, said that if social media existed in the 1930s, 40s, there never would have been anything resembling the Holocaust. And the reaction to that statement was incredibly widespread and powerful. Tamara, I don't like seeing you upset this early in the morning. Usually it's later in the day. Why are you upset?
Well, social media is part of what's happening now. So it would have happened then too, would have been the same or maybe worse.
Well, that's not going to be what Chevra Torah is going to do. It just, there it is. This is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I have, Tamara, a little bit of sympathy to what Musk said. I believe that if we had the international television coverage that, for example, accompanies the Gaza war, and if what was going on during the Holocaust was broadcast into a lot of homes, no, Boy, do I have no support for that position
No, you
whatsoever.
don't.
No, I don't. So I'm going
I'm
to
sorry.
move on from there, and I am properly chastised. Okay.
Excuse me, Rabbi, I love tomorrow, but I agree with you. I think that there have been such an outcry of, oh my God, gas of what's going on. I think it would have been different. I think I see what you're saying. There have been more awareness of everything, and people had more of a conscience, I think, than we really, if
People
they
don't
knew.
have conscience.
I will take one more comment that we're getting to Torah.
Okay, people don't have a conscience.
Anyone want to make a comment? Okay. Oh, okay. Larry, please.
I think you're assuming a free, open market and press, which the Nazis did not have. And it's more comparable to, say, the situation in China right now with its oppression of minorities. Social media is not helping those minorities at all.
Oh, okay.
Okay, can we at least agree? I don't want to force this on you, that I never said what I said. Okay.
Okay.
No, Mara is not going to let go of it. And that's it. Okay. I deserve it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'divrei Torah. Okay, and continuing calendar, Friday was Tu B'Shvat. Okay, the 15th day of Shvat. It's time for tree planting and all that good stuff. Now,
Correct.
Something you talk about how Jewish tradition can infiltrate contemporary expression. Friday was Tu B'Shvat.
Thursday.
A number of people who live in the border communities that were so brutally destroyed on October 7th went back to their destroyed homes and conducted tree planting exercises.
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, yeah. And the planting of the trees in those destroyed settlements is an incredible statement of faith in the future.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And it reminded me just a little bit, because we have to do some sort of Bible study, of Jeremiah at the time when, after the destruction that Jeremiah viewed in his own time, and many of the leaders of the Jewish state taken into captivity, Jeremiah bought property and took the deed and buried it in the ground. And his statement was, by doing this, we're going to come back. This is going to be ours. Okay? It was a memorable way of expressing hope. There's a reason why I say this. It would be so wonderful if I have no land, but if you could plant a tree, if you have property, if you could plant a tree, and if you have any friends or family or acquaintances in Israel, send them a picture of the tree you planted. They will understand totally. Okay? So if you want to do something to indicate solidarity, Tu B'Shvat really, really includes that possibility. Calendar current events, February 7th. By then, the whole world could come to an end, or not. February 7th, our next Wednesday current events. And now we turn to page 442. Okay? I really should, but I want to make this brief. We're far along. Anyone have anything in terms of their lives that we, your community, should share in? Anything happening? Happy, less than happy? Okay. This is a great Shabbat. I mean, there's so much happening. I mean, there is memorial, there is tree planting over this week. Shabbat Shira. It is the Sabbath of song, the Sabbath of song. And if you turn in your Bibles to page 438, you will find the Song of the Sea, Shir, Shira, song, poem, Shira, Shabbat Shira. It is the Sabbath on which we read the Song of the Sea, which contains, of course, the Michamocha, right? And who was like you, oh God? This is where it comes from. And we know, to the best of my limited knowledge, that maybe this is the oldest piece of Hebrew writing in the Bible, maybe. And it's considered to be very old. One of the ways that we know it's old is the grammatical construction in the Hebrew. It just kind of calls out. It's like if you speak to somebody and they say, "Thou shouldst come hither," it's a little bit of an indication that maybe the person is speaking old speak. And this is old speak. I love the way the editors of this book set the Song of the Sea, not only set it apart, but they even did a little bit of illustrations at the bottom of the page. That's actually very, very nice. And then on verse 20, which is page 442, verse 20, then Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, which has always interested me, how Miriam ended up as being Aaron's sister and left out, what's his name? Moses.
Moses.
Yeah. So, okay. So she's identified as, excuse me, Aaron's sister, picked up. We don't know what she picked up. Okay. We have no idea. She picked up what? A hand drum? Great. Now I know what it is. Or a tambourine. Oh, okay. There's another one. What is it? Besides tambourine and hand drum?
Timbrel?
Timbrel. That's another one. Timbrel. I thought, I get so easily confused. What was the name of the cart they took people to the guillotine in during the French Revolution? Huh? Was that a timbrel? No, there was something else. There was a word. Anyway, I don't know what she picked up. Whatever it wasn't a classical pipe organ. She picked up a hand drum, and all the women went out after her and danced, thank you, with hand drums. And then Miriam chanted for them. Shira Ladonai ki ga'o ga'a. Sing to the eternal, he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and rider has he thrown into the sea. And we know that that is really the intro of the Song of the Sea itself. So if you look again back at page 438, this is what Moses and the children of Israel sang this song, sing to God, the horse and rider. So it really means not that she just sang those couple of words, but they sang the whole thing. and there are many, many, many midrashim about this. One of the ones I really like is that when the women sang, their singing not only was better than the men, okay? Better than, it says that in the Midrash, which, by the way, okay, so it was better than the men, but it was even better than the angels. Not even the angels singing could match the singing of the women as they celebrated God at the Reed Sea. I like that. I like that very, very much. You have to know that when a rabbi encounters this text every year for 50 or 60 years, even the slowest among us is going to end up memorizing the text. Not intentionally, but it happens. So there are phrases in here that I love. For example, Tehomot Yechas Yumu, the Tehom, which connects directly back into Genesis, right? The deep of Genesis, which is part of the creative event of Genesis, that is referred to here. The phrase I think that I remember the most, Amar Oyev, Erdof Asig Achalek Shalal. The enemy said, I'm going to draw my sword. I'm going to draw my sword. I'm going to pursue them, and I will take plunder. And that's what the enemy said. And then God, Nashafta Veruchacha, you blew with your spirit, your wind, and the waters, the sea covered them over. This is such a reminiscence of the Genesis account. Such a reminiscence. In any event, I love the poem. It is very old, and you do remember, I'm sure, what the Haftarah is. The Haftarah that connects with this Sedra is Deborah's song. Deborah's
That's
song.
my Hebrew name. That's my Hebrew name. Yay.
Oh, okay, yay for Deborah. Okay, so we got that. And if you look at the Haftarah, you will find another beautiful, beautiful poem, which may be, I don't know, which may be, that starts on 464. Deborah sang the song, etc. It's a beautiful poem. These are two of the quintessential poems in the Torah, and they're matched together today. If you have a bar bat mitzvah today, it's kind of like a fun thing to do. Okay, all right. Any question? And then we're going to actually get into the text and move forward from there. But
I want to share with you, Rabbi, what you said is verse 20. My birthday is the 20th of June.
I'm sorry?
That's so exciting. You said the verse is verse 20 in the Torah you're reading from, the Torah. And my birthday is the 20th. It's verse 20. That's so cool. And my Hebrew name is Deborah. It's so beautiful.
It's all part of the plan.
Yes.
The great plan. I had a professor at the Hebrew Union College. He was a wonderful historian, but a bit eccentric. Now, we don't have eccentric professors at the Hebrew Union College. They are all serious, brilliant scholars. But this guy had a theory that nothing we see is real and that it's all part of the plan. And he would stand up. He had a high-pitched voice. It's all part of the plan. It's part of the plan. I can remember him to this day. He said, if you want to know who's winning the Cold War, remember I was back at HUC in the 60s. If you want to know who's winning the Cold War, read the shipping pages of the New York Times. And there you will be able to trace how armaments are moving around the world and how really the British are controlling everything. We loved him. And anytime someone says it's all part of the plan, I think of him with love. Maya, you have your hand up.
I was just going to say that the word that you're thinking of was tumbrel as opposed to timbrel.
So you're making me look bad, right?
You asked.
I know. So it's tumbrel, Tumbrel.
Correct.
It's almost a timbrel. Okay. Thank you, hon. Thank you very much. Okay. Verse 22, page 442. Then Moses caused Israel to set out from the Sea of Reeds. It's very interesting here that we still call it easily the splitting of the Red Sea. And the word Suf in the Hebrew name for what the sea was, Yam Suf, is reeds, R-E-E-D, reeds. So Yam Suf is really the good name. The sea, the Reed Sea, the Sea of Reeds, okay? And of course, a lot of scientists will go to it and say, see, it was really a shallow sea, a sea of reeds. It was kind of just like a swamp, and therefore easy enough for it to dry in one area for the Israelites to pass through. I'm not so much interested in that. So the Israelites set out from the Sea of Reeds. They went on into the wilderness of Shur. They traveled 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Would anyone like to? Okay, Steve, you have your hand up. You're muted.
The notion that it was easy to cross because it was a marsh seems to be belied by the fact that if that were true, a bunch of horses could have ridden right through it. Why did so many Egyptians drown if it were merely easy terrain?
Okay. I think if I remember correctly, your wife is a playwright, and she writes beautiful plays with a little bit of creative imagination. I tend to view this all in that category as a story. What gets me here, they went 3 days into the wilderness and they didn't find water. What does this announce to you? What do you learn about the Israelites' connection to God and the event of the Reed Sea, the escape from Egypt? What do you get here? We're in 1522. Thank you, Laurie. What?
May I say, Rabbi,
What?
about the water?
Yes.
Miriam, when Miriam sang, you remember you told us that there were water wells everywhere after she started singing, after they crossed. But right now with the sea parting and all that, and the horses drowning, I agree with what he said about it's not a marsh. But in reference to water, Miriam, wherever she went, there was a water well.
Okay, we're going to get to that, and thank you. So what does it mean? 3 days into the wilderness, they couldn't find water. There is a bell ringing that's going to ring throughout the narrative of the 40 years. What are we hearing? What are we hearing? It's never good enough. The Israelites will spend 40 years complaining. And this is the beginning. It took only 3 days, in the terms of the narrative, 3 days after God, by the way, split the sea, divided it, the Israelites went through, the Egyptians drowned. 3 days later, they were dissatisfied. The bell is ringing. And this, God bless you, whoever's in, this is going to be a theme that will take us all the way through the story. Rashi wants to talk about our verse, and I really can't. Rashi said it, so it must be right, but I'm not sure that I like it. Rashi said Moses caused Israel to journey. Okay, that's verse 22. He made them, this is Rashi, he made them journey against their own will. Rashi said, Vayisa Moshe et Yisrael, Vayasa. Moses caused the Israelites to travel. Why cause them? Led them, brought them, inspired them, caused them. This word grabbed Rashi as words will. He made them journey against their own will. Listen to this. Because the Egyptians had adorned their horses with ornaments of gold and silver and precious stones. I'm not sure I like this. And the Israelites were finding gold and silver and precious stones in the Reed Sea. Greater was the booty they obtained at the Reed Sea than the booty they had brought out of Egypt. It's kind of a really ugly portrayal, in my mind, of the Israelites. On this account, Moses was compelled to make them journey against their will because they didn't want to give up the chance of finding more gold and silver floating in the sea. I don't know. I think Rashi was having a bad day when he wrote that. And by the way, Rashi probably, well, I don't know. There already were accusations that Jews were money grubbing, money assessing, money obsessed individuals in Rashi's time. And here Rashi is portraying maybe I take this too seriously. I just read it and I was uncomfortable. That Rashi used this as an explanation as to why the Israelites had to be urged on their way. Any thoughts on this? And then we'll move on. It just, every once in a while, even with Rashi, I got a few questions. Anyone want to comment? Risa, excuse me. Excuse me. Risa, please.
Sorry.
I think Rashi's trying to give us an excuse for what comes ahead in terms of where the Israelites got all the jewels that they used, not only for the calf, but for the tabernacle. And he's telling us that they didn't steal it from the Egyptians. They didn't do all the things that we talk about of how where the jewels and everything came from, and he puts them in the sea. I like it.
Thank you, Lisa.
I think that I have to comment, Risa, that I had never thought of that. And that's a really good insight. Would you please turn off your screen? No, that's a very yes, I like your answer better than mine. Kevin.
Okay, well, not finding water for 3 days suggests that this is a road that, hadn't been traveled. And I would assume if you're gonna, take a journey, you're gonna take a journey on a road that has been traveled, and you know where the water is because it's been traveled many times. They obviously had enough water to last them for 3 days, but are they being pulled away from where they're trying to go because everyone wants to get this, jewels and gold and all that, as opposed to going towards the water?
These are questions, Kevin. That's a fine question. It's a question that obviously we don't have an answer to. When people ask about the 40 years wandering in the desert, I think the metaphor, and this is just me, is that before the challenges of forming a nation and creating a world-changing view of ethics and morality, the Israelites had to go through a period of cleansing discomfort, misery. It simply wasn't easy. And maybe the authors, the editors, among the reasons that they had for telling these stories is to tell people, if you really want to change the world, if you really want to make things different, be prepared to suffer. If you're not prepared to suffer, stop trying to change things, because change agents are not warmly received at the beginning. Later, if they win, you'll notice that everyone agreed with them.
Rabbi, may I have my hand up?
Okay, please.
Suffering, I can relate. We can all relate, sadly, to that. And one day maybe I'll get someone to help me write a book. Maybe your wife, the gentleman right there, his wife, playwright, because I have seen so much suffering. We all have, but losing
Okay,
your children.
we're gonna stay.
I
We're
agree
gonna
with you. I
stay with
disagree
the
with.
text.
Yes, but I just want to
Donna,
agree with you.
we're gonna
I want to
stay.
agree with what you said.
Okay, well, I always like that. I always like that. Steve?
I have two quick comments. First, I think it's unfair to call people complainers for commenting you don't have water for 3 days, which could put many people on the verge of death. They complain later about other things, but I think that's an unfair description. As for Rashi, it seems like it's fantasy. It was one thing to cross on dry land. Gold and jewels don't float. And why would you go back into water toward people trying to kill you? And if not, the water is so strong, it drowns whatever steps into it. So I agree with what Risa had to say is maybe why it's there, but it seems like a not very logical explanation of what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Mara.
I have a question about the Hebrew. Can this verse be interpreted as when verse 23 says, "For they were bitter"? Can this verse be interpreted as the people were bitter, and that's why they viewed the water in this way, or viewed the water this way?
You know, I have a couple of references here to Hebrew and how it's interesting. What's also interesting, Mara, sure, that's possible. Period. Yes. Okay. But also, Dona's comment, which we hold on to, according to rabbinic tradition, a well followed Miriam all the years of the wandering in the desert. And that at the time of Miriam's death, that well disappeared, gone. So Miriam is always associated with water. Now, Miriam, gonna play. I don't want to play off of Mara, okay, because we have a member of the class whose name is Mara. Okay, I'm not going to point out who it is, okay? But Mara means what, Mara?
Bitter.
Bitter. Bitter. Miriam, Yam is sea. Miriam, bitter water, water here, Miriam involved in bringing fresh water. To me, is that an accident? I don't know, but it's fascinating. I can't go beyond that. It is fascinating. And you're saying the water was bitter, the people was bitter. That's another great sermon. Yes, you could do that. You absolutely could do that. The bitterness wasn't only in the water, it was in their unpurified spirit.
But I'm saying that the water was fine. The people's bitterness made them view the water as not drinkable.
Did any of you ever have a meal when you were upset? Something was really bothering you, not just mildly upset, but really upset. And then someone sets out a beautiful dish in front of you and it tastes lousy. Amara, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just taking a different. Could bitterness of spirit make the water bitter? Answer yes. I mean, we've all felt that. Sometimes, you've ruined dinner for me. No one here has ever said that, right? But you've ruined dinner. So whatever it is that just happened, you're eating and you're really not enjoying it. Yes, Risa, please, you've had one big win. Be careful. I can't hear you. I cannot hear you. Oh, you're showing off. What? You have your hand up. Did you not have your hand up? Okay. Actually, what happened is, since Risa came up with a really great insight, I disconnected her volume. We'll see what happens. Come back to us later if it comes back on. Can't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay. Now, I want to give you another example of this play with the Hebrew language. Please look at verse 25. So first of all, they came to Mara, this place of so-called bitter water, couldn't drink the water of Mara because it was bitter. Big surprise. bitter, a place named Mara had bitter water, which is called why it's called Mara. And the people grumbled. They grumbled. And that just goes along with what I say. This is like a presaging of 40 years. They grumbled against Moses. The Hebrew vayilonu lehitlonen. They complained. There are other words that I could use to be the same as grumbled or complained. They were not happy. Now listen to this. So Moses cried out to God. All right, Moses is a perfect bureaucrat. The moment things went wrong, he kicked it up to the boss. Not my job. He kicked it up to God. And God showed him. What did God show him? The Hebrew. God showed Moses an eitz, a tree. Eitz is tree. Eitz is not a piece of wood. It's a tree. And God showed him a piece of wood. False. But the translator was trying to say, clearly Moses didn't pick up a tree and throw it in the water, so it must have been a piece of wood. Though the Hebrew says a tree. He threw it into the water and the water became sweet. But I'm going to focus in verse 25. And I have to admit, I hadn't thought about this much before, but that happens every time I prepare for this class. Vayitzak el Adonai, Moses cried out to God or yelled or whatever he did. Vayorehu Adonai etz. And I started looking at the word Vayorehu. It could be translated, showed him. It could be. Then my mind, which works quite slowly, said Vayorehu has the same root as Torah. Same root. It also has the same root of shooting an arrow. Also, same root. So, what did God really do there? How did God make the people accept the water? And taking Mara's example, that the bitterness was as much in them as it was in the water itself. Vayorehu, in my creative translation, God started teaching them Torah. Vayorehu. If my weird translation of this works, God distracted them by showing them a little piece of what was to come. Vayorehu. God Torah taught. And then, because my mind is significantly shattered, Torah is referred to as a tree. Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba. The Torah is a tree of life. So I might read this. Nobody else ever will. I might read this. God taught the people a piece of Torah. This would be the first piece of Torah that would be transmitted to the people. And when they began to understand what was going to be emerging from this wilderness wandering, then the water wasn't so bitter and they could go forward. I just wrote a novel. I don't know. Howard?
Robert Alter's translation says, showed him a tree rather than a piece of wood. And it also says, instead of saying he made for them a fixed rule, it says he set him a statute and law, and there he did test them. Set him a statute and law, which sounds like Torah.
That's the whole point. And I agree. Who am I to agree with Robert Alter? Yes, Robert Alter. Brilliant. So maybe it just wasn't throwing a piece of wood into the water. Maybe if people are bitterly complaining and you give them a little taste of the vision of what could come next if they're willing to commit, maybe even bitter water will taste sweet. And I'm not going to draw the obvious. Oh, yes, I will. That's part of what a leader is supposed to do. You are asking something, whether it's a book club, a movie club, or a country. You are asking something of people. Let them have a sense of what could come if the people supported what you're doing. And yes, I would apply that to a presidential campaign on all sides. Give the people a taste. If you follow me, this is what could be available. And then even bitter water tastes good. Eric.
It's like when you put a chemical, it was chemical neutralization. The water was bitter, it was acid or base, whatever, and then you adjusted the pH so it's acidity or a basidity, so it was able to be to be consumed. And it's like chlorinated water. The tree was like the source of the chlorine, and it purified the water so it was able to be consumed. Like a chemical. Like you throw the acid, it's like when I was making making the sugars in the lab, you had to adjust the pH so the organism can consume it.
I just imagine, Eric, if you were writing the Torah and the people complained bitterly, and Moses pulled out his little junior chemical set and adjusted the pH in the water, and all was well. It somehow, I don't know. I mean, you could be right, but it takes the poetry, the dream. I mean, you may be right, but I don't like it.
And also, and Moses was the first, was the leader of the rules for we were the deplorables coming out of Egypt. So Moses was our leader, of the first leader of the deplorables. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. And I'm moving right ahead. Yes, the first leader of the deplorables.
Yeah. Very, very stimulating. When you were telling the story, you stimulated my mind, my imagination.
No, we're good. Eric, you're good.
Like Moses was like a good Alinsky, a good Alinsky.
I'm just trying to picture the people are gathered around this water and it's bitter. Moses, in a white lab coat, comes up to the water, puts a little bit of, fixes the pH. Life goes on.
And also, little humor. Moses was the first rules for radicals.
Was the first
rules, introduced the rules for radicals to mankind.
Yeah, by the way, the rabbis, when talking about what Robert Alter said, wanted to ask if God were going to teach the Israelites the first bit of Torah, what would God have chosen? Doesn't say, we don't know. And that's again, this is Mona again. She's not here, but what a wonderful creative base. God is going to teach them one of the 613 mitzvot. Which one would God choose? And then, of course, I'd ask you, oh, Howard is going to answer. I was going to ask you, which one would you choose, Howard?
God would choose, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. Because God, that's what God was all about.
Okay. I mean, that's good.
He created the universe and then wanted it to praise him. That's his big.
And then someone else could come up and say, Howard, love your neighbor as yourself, or remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, or don't mix linen and wool together when you're making a garment. No, you don't think that would have been one of them.
No,
okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. But it's a fun thing to, if God had only one chance to teach the Israelites one section, one commandment out of Torah, what would that? Oh, Jesus. How did that happen? I wanted you to get to Vayorehu. Moses taught them Torah. And I wanted to say that the study of Torah, and I'm talking to the committed, the study of Torah is a discipline. When you take the discipline upon yourselves, incredible things open up. And I'm not telling anyone here anything new. It's just, okay, thank you, Tamara. I used a foul expression, and what am I going to get criticized for again? Since you mentioned Jesus, and Jesus was actually asked that question and gave his answer. And the answer, Tamara?
Well, one was the Ve'ahavta, as Howard said, and then he said, and the other one is like it, love your neighbor as yourself.
So between Howard and me, we recreated Jesus's response. Howard, we should drink a l'chaim to that. That's there.
We need to get royalties.
We're going to have fun next year because there's so many good things. I'm going to end up with something which I was not aware of. And you know, that's a lot of stuff. Rashi and Ibn Ezra are beginning their commentaries on the Torah now in Exodus, because Torah is going to be revealed in chapter 20 and the 10 Commandments and so forth. And as I was reading the commentaries preparing for today, I came to be aware that these men were actually setting out a program in which they expected the readers to grow from place to place. At the very next thing, which we're not going to talk about now, Ibn Ezra is going to talk about what's the difference between a chok, C-H-O-K, chet kuf, a chok, and other rules. And for the first time in our Sedra, Ibn Ezra is going to say, well, a chok is something which doesn't flow naturally and rationally. It just is an asserted thing do this. And then from now on in the rest of the Torah, Ibn Ezra is going to expect us to know this. He's going to expect us to remember it's a textbook from his perspective. And they use the occasions of interpretation to present the fundamentals of how to understand Torah. And I never saw this process as an ongoing process. I would read the commentary as this is the commentary right here, and fail to see it as part of a continuum. And somehow, and I'm preparing for this, for the first time, it became clear that these guys were good. They knew what they were doing. And the commentaries build, and they expect us to walk with them. I was delighted with that. We're going to move now to Kaddish. I can't believe it's an hour. But
Thank you, Rabbi.
we're going to go forward with Kaddish. Those who have passed away during the past month: Cynthia Ader, Ohad Ashur, Nina Deutsch. And when Nina Deutsch's name is mentioned, I mentioned that this is Mona Deutsch Miller's sister, passed away this week. So the name of Nina Deutsch. Nadav Issachar Farhi, John Menzies, Marcia Arnold Netzer, Arthur Schwimmer, Lee Jacob Silver, Gloria Strasberger. Are there any other new deaths that have occurred for Shloshim? The yortzites that have occurred during the past week: Ronald Arthur Allen, Joel Altschul, Nasser Banayan, Max Bass, Shirley Bensall, Mary Berman, and mention that that's Risa's mother. Millie Blair, Amy Rose Block, Paul Borenstein, Harry Kaplan, Abe Cohn, Fortune Levy Cohn, Avishai Davidson, Bella Schimmel Desser, Irvin Deutsch, Jane Deverall, Angelo DeFalco, Louis Ehrenberg, Frida Feinstein, Meredith Elaine Fishman, Helen Franklin, Hyman Franklin, Minnie Ethel Friedberg, Sidney Galper, Gertrude Geffner, Esther Gitlin, Alice Gittleson, William Golant, Naomi Satz Goldberg, Nathan Goldberg, Saul Greenberg, Gary Gross, Sadie Grushkin, Wendy Hamburg, Herman Harris, Judith Sherman Harris, Henry Hartman, Margaretta Heald, Richard Heitner, Jane Hirsch, Marvin Howard, Francis Hurwitz, Morris Kaplan, Sidney Leonard Kaplan, Robert Carrot Sr., Frank Cohn, Kenneth Krasno, Raphael Krausen, Mary Kraut, Alexander Lauterbach, Annie Lederer, Max Levin, Jim Levitis, Joseph Lubin, Anita Lipson, Benjamin Maltz, Victor Marshall, Sidney Maturin, Etta Mellinger, Morris Melnick, Eunice Michelson, Seymour Miller, Arnold Mittler, Marvin Morris, Fanny Nagler, Mary Nachum, Sonia Nadich, Frank Nyman, Alexander Nash, William Orenstein, William Orland, Gail Pasternak, Monroe Failzer, Sophie Phillips, William Price, Raskin, Myra Reifman, Selma Reinstein, Anita Repol, Jean Richardson, Louis Rosen, Martin Henry Ross, Eleonora Sepozhikova, Janice Sarnoff, Harriet Siegler, Verona Seidel, David Schaefer, David Siegel, Larry Slatton, Rosella Smith, Wendy Snyder, Gary Stern, Norman Stern, Aaron Stovitz, Mark Suffin, Marvin Jack Teitelbaum, Sarah Tischerman, Rose Topaz, Shirley Barish Baron, Florence Victor, Bella Wesley, Mildred Leslie Widson, Iraj Yedidzian, Barbara Lefkowitz-Zagowski. If there are other names to be remembered at this time, please speak their names aloud or carry them in your hearts. We bear in mind as well the names of those who died in defense of the United States, those who died in defense of the state of Israel, those who died through senseless acts of horror, those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. We bring them all together. And Mona, we are at one with you. You weren't here before. I see you now. So we're going to join in Kaddish. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah,
Shemei Rabbah,
Bialma Divra Chirute, Biamlich Malchute, B'chayechon Uvyomechon, B'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, Hagala Uvizman Kariv, V'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, La'olam Ulamei Amaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei Dekudashah, Brichu, Le'ela, Min Kol Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbachata V'nechamata, Damiran V'alma, V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabbah, Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'imromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Okay, and I see Tamara had Kaddish for her late husband, Bill Whitby, and Irvin Deutsch was Mona's father, and Reka Saren mentioned Norman Jewison. And at this point, we're going to think about the hostages and the faint possibility that maybe there is movement toward some resolution that might bring the hostages back, end the war, and set the path for a two-state solution.
Amen.
Amen.
We can only hope and pray. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Plant a tree. If you can plant a tree, plant a tree.
Yes,
And
Rabbi.
send a picture. Shabbat
Thank
Shalom.
you.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom. Have a
Risha,
wonderful
I
week,
love you,
everyone.
Risha.
Sending you love.
Sorry for your loss, Risha.
Shabbat
God bless
shalom.
everybody.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.